Thank you, Calais. Our time together is nearing its end, but our final speaker has very few important last revelations regarding race and intersectionality. In a stunning show of vulnerability and empathy, please give our last speaker, Meenu Ram, a warm welcome.
I want to play a game with you called, Have You Heard This at Your Dinner Table? I'm going to say a few phrases, and I want you all to tally up in your head how many of these phrases you've heard at your dinner table. Well, it doesn't exclusively have to be at the dinner table, but I think you get the point. Starting off strong with, you know, that's really not such a great neighborhood. You shouldn't be around there. Are you sure you want to be seen with them? No, wait, where are you actually from? People like them, they're just more likely to be criminals and violent. They just don't work hard enough. That's why they ended up in that situation. They take opportunities away from the real Americans. Chances are, you've probably heard at least one of these phrases. And if you're as lucky as me, you've heard all of them. After a while, I was stuck to these phrases like a bug to flypaper. I felt like I couldn't escape it even if I wanted to. All I could do was toss and turn on the flypaper of my own thoughts. But never could I feel the relief of letting go and flying away. When I say the word racism, I can't help but wonder how many of you think of an instance where one person of color is being racist to another person of color. Honestly, I'm not quite sure, but what I am sure of is that I wasn't one of those people. Because if I had to think of an instance where one person of color was being racist to another person of color, I would have had to think of myself. Let's cut to the chase. I was racist. And for a long time, I thought I didn't know that I was being racist. I carried these racist ideologies, but I never wanted to address them. Yet, when you saw me out and about, I would openly denounce racism. And I'm sure many of you would too. I'm sure if you saw someone make a racist remark out in public or over the internet, you wouldn't hesitate to say something. And that's commendable, don't get me wrong. But I want you all to be honest with yourselves. Let's say someone in your inner circle, like friends or family, were to make that exact same racist remark. How many of you would actually say something? Because I didn't. I couldn't. Because for the longest time, being anti-racist simply wasn't convenient for me. Growing up, I heard a certain misguided rhetoric, if you will. That misguided rhetoric was just straight up racism. But acknowledging it meant villainizing people that I deeply cared about and having uncomfortable conversations with people I couldn't just walk away from. I didn't have the protection of hiding behind a screen or knowing that I would never see these people ever again. But more importantly, it meant villainizing myself because I started to internalize that misguided rhetoric from earlier. I clenched my fists a little harder. I clutched my bag a little tighter. I walked a little faster when I would pass by a group of black people. I would smile a little longer, laugh a little harder when older friends or family would mock East Asian languages. I did all of these things for my own personal comfort because it felt easier and simpler, like I was chasing after a twisted gold medal or blue ribbon for my very own conformity. Because I thought if I was the one being racist, there was no way I would be subjugated to that exact same racism. I was sitting in a classroom working on my little worksheet when I overheard a group of friends talking rather loudly, I might add, about Desi people. It was your general slew of curry-related insults, accent mocking, and accusations of being dirty or unhygienic. I was miffed when I heard those comments. My leg was bouncing up and down, and I was gripping my pencil so hard it was about to perpetually snap at any second. I felt this sort of soup of emotions well up within me, a soup comprised of anger and frustration. I was stewing in a soup of emotions. And the final garnish on that soup was my own guilt. The guilt of not allowing myself to stand up for myself. Because throughout that entire altercation, all I had to say were a few mocking lines of my own, in an accent that felt dirty and disgusting and absolutely riddled with shame. Because if I'm being honest here, I much preferred having to deal with being the butt of my own joke than having to deal with being the butt of somebody else's. And if my lackluster comedy meant I could spend even a little while longer living in the facade of the world I had built for myself, then yeah, I would have made a racist joke about myself any day of the week. But here's where I'd like to take a moment to stand in my own little confession booth of sorts. I did a lot of shameful things. I internalized and in turn spread racist ideas that criminalized and villainized Black and brown communities. I heard one hearsay story of an African American man shooting an Asian woman in a drive-by shooting, and I immediately got defensive. Now, you won't catch me dead or alive, verbally proclaimed that they were the good minority population. They were the people I could associate with. They were the good seeds, the pure seeds, the unmarred seeds, the white-ish seeds. And the fact that I can even reduce these people's character to seeds itself is bonkers, and I think further highlights how off-kilter my judge of character really was. But somewhere along the lines of my life, I had come to this conclusion that societal acceptance and financial success was only attainable through one thing: proximity to whiteness. I tore into other Asian stereotypes because I thought I could make myself look like the better Asian person. And this is where I'd like to address the model minority myth. This is where a lot of my own intrinsic distaste for people who looked like me came from, and maybe for people who were in a similar situation to me can relate. The model minority myth is partly the idea that Asian Americans don't face discrimination due to being the smart minority, the financially successful minority, or the fact that they aren't openly hate crimed. That's not true, by the way. And partially part of that myth is that Asian Americans are held up as this ideal minority, and I relished in it. I felt like I was part of this group that was successful and superior. But what the model minority myth fails to address is the hardships and struggles faced by the Asian American community, and how it undermines those struggles with the systemic oppression faced by Black, brown, and indigenous communities alike. And many of the people who I knew around me who carried those exact same microaggressions that I did weren't overtly racist, but they were trying to find a solution to their own problems, a scapegoat for those exact same problems. Is what they did wrong? Yes, absolutely yes. But I think it's important that we leave some room for grace, leave some room to allow people to feel actively comfortable in being actively anti-racist. We are never going to decrease racism within the POC community by barring the people trying to take that first step towards self-reform. And I know tackling concepts like white supremacy and internalized racism can feel heavy and burdensome, and confronting yourself is a deeply personal process. Even now, I often find myself resenting the things that I once said or once did, or catch myself saying now, but it's okay. I often feel like a washed up fish on the shore, flip-flopping between what my understanding of race and racism truly is. But I'd like to depart by saying one thing. I want to emphasize the power of taking the first step towards self-recognition, because that first step is what has set me on the path that I am on today. The path that has allowed me to dismantle my own internalized racism. And I hope on our very brief journey today, you have found a sliver of confidence or courage to take your very own first step. Thank you.
Thank you, Meenu, for that talk. And also, thank you all for attending TEDxEmerald Campus Youth. We hope that through this experience, not only have our 6 speakers spread a message important to them, but that you all leave this hall with ideas, discussions, and thoughts of your own. The experience of founding and organizing this event with Julie has been one unlike any other, but I can thoroughly say that this night has made all the effort worth it. So truly, thank you all for listening to the talks shared tonight, and a thank you to our speakers for preparing their message and sharing them. And finally, a special thanks to all our team members and administrators who made this event possible. Information will continue to be available on our social media, so please follow us on Instagram at TEDxECYouth and feel free to discuss your thoughts on the talks in the reception area as we filter out. And as you do so, we would again like to remind you of how important your donations are to ensure the longevity of this event. Cash donations are highly appreciated and can be donated under the signage in the reception area as well. With your donations, we can ensure that this event is funded and continued, and the voices of our youth is celebrated for many years to come. And we sincerely thank all of our donors. Thank you all once again for attending, and we hope to see all of you next year at the 2nd annual TEDxEmerald Campus Youth. Thank you and have a good night.